Okay, thanks, Jason. Okay. Okay. Shalom, shalom, Yisrael. This is Yehonatan Dawid with you here, Yahweh for Christians at gmail.com on this, what they call the 22nd day of March, 2020. Honored to be with you here. I have a very special guest, Mr. Roland N. Patterson Jr., and he is part of the Baltimore City Police Review Board Coalition. And we're operating, welcome aboard, Mr. Patterson. Can you hear me? Good morning, sir. And we obviously, we are under not normal conditions here in our country or even in the world. I know the novel COVID-19 virus is the big elephant, white elephant in the room. Yet life goes on. There are important things going on. I've been trying to get this meeting with Mr. Patterson, also with Miss Alderbron. Also, they are very busy people. We have a lot going on. I'm operating remotely right now, and Mr. Patterson is calling me remotely. And so we have a whole lot going on. It's very difficult, and I'm not a tech-savvy man at all. So please bear with me as I try to navigate through this complex situation here. Now, Mr. Patterson, I met him. I was at the at City Hall, the Baltimore City Review Board, a few months ago, and I just saw him in the corner there, and I exchanged information with him because I wanted to know what was his role in all this. I was new in it. I got in because I was born and raised in Baltimore, and I don't have a whole lot good to say about the Baltimore City Police Department. So Mr. Patterson has a lot of experience. He's a business consultant. He has experience in commercial real estate. He's a certified in theological studies. He's assistant state's attorney. He's you was at Campfield AME. You're now currently at Bethel AME, Mr. Patterson. Right. So I'm very and he's also found time to be part of the Baltimore City Police Review Board Coalition. Can you tell me, Mr. Patterson, how you got involved and talk to me about this coalition? Mr. Patterson? Yes. So how did you get involved into this in the Baltimore City Police Review Board Coalition? And so that was 6 years ago. What changes have happened in those ensuing 6 years?
Well, um, in the 6 years, first Senator, now State Senator Jill Carter, became the director, and the CRB, for short, Civilian Review Board, began to take the shape that the legislation I referenced was drafted to create. It became a body that was seeking independence, that was pursuing civilian cases, civilian complaints, and was beginning to resemble what Mr. Cheatham had conceived before founding the Police Review Board Coalition. As an apparent result of these developments, the city Davis decided to instruct the police department to not honor CRB subpoenas. This brought a slowdown, if not a halt, to CRB operations. The CRB sued about that matter. Mr. Davis relented and released his instruction to the police department, and apparently cases began to flow. However, since that happened, the suit was filed in 2018, and it was, I believe, rescinded or released, dismissed sometime toward the end of 2018, the beginning of 2019. Since that time, the flow of cases has been delinquent. The cases do come to the CRB, but they come either near the end of the statutory period allowed for CRB action or after the passage of that time. So the effect of what has happened is that the cases are not being allowed to reach the CRB in time for that body to take legal action. The CRB is being thwarted in effect, no matter what the cause.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, just in the few meetings I witnessed, very frustrated, because just this year, Senator Jill Carter, all bills that she proposed to be run, they were all withdrawn. She didn't get anything through this year. And then you talk about going to litigation. You have your legal representation is from the law department, and they defend the Baltimore City Police Department in the city. And you don't have no option to go with anyone else.
You're raising what ultimately is the core issue here. The core issue is what is the ideal structure for the CRB. Can the CRB, who is going to critique the function of the police office, of the police department by way of civilian complaint, also exist under the city umbrella that, as you say, is responsible for the police department? I think that what we're experiencing in Baltimore City is dramatically producing that answer, and that answer is no.
And I'm glad for people like you who are in here fighting for this, because as I looked into this, I did not know that actually Baltimore historically has led the way, or the citizens of Baltimore, I should say, have led the way in putting a spotlight on the police department's handling of her citizens. The history is long, and that's where Jillian really would shine. Look at her, you know her background, and she is the right one to do the job. And you saw what happened. She was deposed. And that leads me to wonder, and let me just go through a brief history of some of the things, the problems that I have seen. Like you said, Baltimore City Police Department is widespread corruption. It is on a national level. We have a consent decree. It shows you that we really have severe problems with our police department acting as professionals. No one that I know of does not have a direct, has not been influenced by police brutality in some kind of way. And I have a lot of intimate stories I could share. But over just the past few years, you had in 2018, there was a consent decree, and an expert panel concluded that the Civilian Review Board was antithetical to the police accountability and should be scrapped. It should be scrapped and we didn't start over again.
Well, that is correct. That is one of the findings of the U.S. Department of Justice in the context of the consent decree. I think that the structural issue that we have outlined is the basis of that observation. You mentioned Jillian Alderbron. May I just say a word about her in this context?
Sure, yes, of course, sir.
Jillian Alderbron Civilian Review Board and their functions. And she was dismayed at the, let's just call it expiration case practice that was underway and is likely still underway at the Baltimore City Civilian Review Board. So in my presence, she used her skill as an attorney to make a record in every meeting of the fact that most cases on the agenda were already expired by the time they were being acted on by the Civilian Review Board. That means that she outlined each case, the date, and the fact that it was being presented so late that the board could not validly take action. In other words, the board simply recommends to the police chief adverse actions or non-adverse actions that should be taken against a police officer. When those actions are recommended late, the chief is free to say, I'm not able to accept your recommendation, not on the substance, but on the fact that it's late. And
Yes.
so a civilian's complaint can be defeated through that means. In response to her doing this in every meeting, and in response to her making a record that the majority of the cases were late and expired or near expired, she was the subject of an ouster vote, a recommended vote, a vote to recommend to the mayor that she be removed.
Yes.
And so in the face of that, rather than request a hearing before the city council, she resigned. Now, I just want to say that I wasn't present. I left early that night. I certainly haven't spoken to any of the board members about this, but the effect of this vote in the context about which I'm speaking is to say that the board is pleased to acquiesce to expired cases, much more so than to complain about the functions of the staff that produce those expired cases and thereby defeat the function of the board itself.
Yeah, and you left early. I'm telling you, man, it was brutal. It was hard to look at. I wanted to step up and scream. They just piled on her. It was brutal. And I did speak to several key members of the board afterwards at length. And you're right. This is what I need from you is I don't understand. The board have some Hall of Fame members on it that you would choose. I would choose them. I mean, are we really saying that Kobe doesn't want it to be better? Are we saying that the chair, George Bunton, doesn't want it to be better? Are we saying that Curry is agreeing to this? Is Ingram, he gave a testimony. He said that as a black male from the South, that he could not tolerate a white woman talk to him like that. And they went on to say about how harsh her words were. I sense frustration. I'm being very nice right now, talking to you right now, but I could get very harsh and brutal myself, someone could say, about something that you know should be done and you're not getting any headway. She never cursed anybody, and no one even said she cursed them. They said she used curse words, but they did not curse the person directly. To me, that's, hey, I have no problem with that. Don't call me a name, but if you curse while getting information, that's fine. But they piled on her with that, and they tried to use the race card saying, well, this is a white woman putting down black. That's what Ingram said. He felt like she was putting him down. I wasn't there. I don't know. But I do know that this woman's credentials are Hall of Fame. She has experience in everything that's why they made her the secretary. As a matter of fact, George said that's why he picked her to do what she's doing. He chose her specifically because of her background to do exactly what she was doing, yet he voted to oust her. So do you really think that the president of NAACP doesn't want this to work, for example?
I am not able.
Go ahead.
Can I chime in there? I think you don't know that I'm on the line.
Who's on the line? Jillian?
That's Jillian.
Jillian.
Oh, hi. I did not use on the line. I was told that you couldn't make it.
No. I've been on the line for like...
Oh, well, great. Well, let me introduce you. Julie Alderbron is the deposed secretary. She represented the Southeast District. And the first meeting I ever went to, the only person in that crowded room I was impressed with was her. I even wrote notes. I showed it to her that this is the only one that cared. But you have decades of experience in law, public policy experience, state, federal, and international, across all sectors of public health. Wow, it's a whole long list here. You've done research that was funded by the National Institute of Justice. You've been on a civilian oversight committee, police that looks at police accountability. It goes on and on. But anyway, and you're certified in reviewing law enforcement. So yes, give us your insights. I'm sorry, I did not know you were on, Jillian. Go ahead.
Oh, no, that's quite all right. And I have to say that you don't really need to be an expert in anything to see what's been going on at the Civilian Review Board in Baltimore, I'm afraid. And what finally tipped the scales in that meeting that you're talking about, where they voted to throw me out, was that I was complaining not only about cases being expired, but the quality of the investigations themselves, which are handled by the Office of Civil Rights, and this is why Darnell was so upset about this. The quality of the investigations was so poor. I mean, ridiculously poor. Losing evidence, losing interviews, not even assigning cases to an investigator for months and months and months. Sometimes, even when a case wasn't expired, we just didn't have enough information to make any decision on them. And so I complained about that. In fact, I wrote a long note about it, which I'm sure you're not going to see posted in the minutes. As you know, the website is also controlled by the Office of Civil Rights. You know, it's not that it's the Office of Civil Rights. It's that they report to the mayor.
Yeah.
And the city has a vested interest in minimizing the amount of police misconduct that actually goes on because, you know, they're afraid of being liable for all those lawsuit payouts, like for the Gun Trade Task Force, for example. So, I mean, that's really the essential problem, is that the Civilian Review Board, the statute is weak because it never gave them any money, so they rely on the city for money. But it's really not the fault of the statute. The statute is what allowed the city to take over the power of the Civilian Review Board, but it doesn't force the city to do so. So if the city really had an interest, if our elected officials really had an interest in doing something about abusive policing in Baltimore, they could do it.
And you're not even allowed to write.
And I just want to say that it's costing us $675,000 of taxpayer money every year is being funneled into the Office of Civil Rights to do what they are calling, and I'm saying this in air quotes, civilian oversight.
And you have no say so in the budget. You don't even know what it is and how. You have nothing to say about it. And you can't even write your own bylaws.
Exactly. Well, one of the first things I said, I came on the board in September, and the first thing I asked was, where are the bylaws? You know, bylaws they're not really laws, but they're internal governing procedures. You know, how are we going to run meetings, and what's the job description for the chair, and things like that. And they said there weren't any. You know, this Civilian Review Board's been around for 20 years, and they don't even have internal operating procedures. So I said, okay, let's write them. And I went home, and I drafted 20 pages of bylaws. And then another colleague on the Civilian Review Board went through it with me. We proposed this draft that everyone could look at and could review and could make comments on and edit. And what did they say to us? OCR said to us, well, you can't adopt those bylaws until we have the law department review them.
Wow. The law department that represents the Baltimore City Police Department and the city. And we need people like Mr. Patterson and yourself got to be historians. There's no integrity in terms of the historical footprint of what we're talking about, which is mind-boggling. Yes, Mr. Patterson. Yeah, I'm saying we need people like you to give us the history, because there is difficulty even finding history of the process of this review board.
Well, Doc, you're on the line. You know what? They're talking. You're on the line, though.
Go ahead.
You know, that's another issue and that's another thing that I documented at that famous explosive meeting in February, was that as secretary, I went to them and I said, okay, you've been keeping the Civilian Review Board files for 20 years. Let's have an inventory. I want to know what you've got. And they said to me, we can't tell you what we have. You tell us what you want, and we'll let you see it, if we can. And I said, how do I know what I want unless I know what there is?
Yes.
I mean, they wouldn't even give me the files. And then they said everything before 2006 was archived. And I said, okay, I know what happens when you send boxes of files to an archive. You make a table of contents. You make an index so you know what's there. I said, let me see the index. And they said, we don't have one.
Brother Johnson, you have Doc Cheatham on the line, too.
Oh, Doc Cheatham. Okay. Doc Cheatham, welcome aboard. I'm grateful to have you. And let me say this. Now, Jillian, we all know she's white female. But as a black male, Mr. Cheatham, Mr. Patterson, tell me, what do you think about our black males on the board? Do they really, really care? I mean, before you answer that, when that meeting, that legendary meeting was over, it was brutal. I did not seek out anybody but Jillian. I couldn't get to her. Oh, yeah, eventually I did talk to her. But I had Reverend Little, I had George Bunton, the chair, Mr. Curry, and Mr. Ingram all came to me and in considerable time, one by one, and then or two by two, to put their point of view or their spin on what I just saw. I didn't go to them, they came to me. Now, as a black male, do you think these men really want this to get better when there are people look just like them being beaten up and violated daily in Baltimore City?
Let me let Marvin speak first, and then I'll answer afterwards.
Okay.
Let me first thank you so very much for this program.
Yes, sir.
I have to say ditto and ditto and ditto. Everything that Jillian said, everything that Roland said, I totally agree with all of it. 14 years ago, I had the unfortunate opportunity to go sit as the new president of the NAACP Baltimore branch into the Civilian Review Board. I found it to be a travesty. I would not believe that it has gotten worse rather than better. I saw that, you know, a entity was needed to be created. Senator Joan Carter Conway, I witnessed her be the victim of police. And I said, the NAACP has to do something. I would say at this point, I think those members of that board need to all resign. I think they are an embarrassment.
Yes.
That includes the representative for the NAACP and the ACLU.
Wow.
I saw that we needed some outside people because the people that were already on the board representing each police district were sitting there many times not having enough people for even a quorum to make decisions. I'm suggesting that a group come in and assist. Years and years ago, we had a group called the Brotherhood. This was a group of members. It was called the Brotherhood of Liberty. I think the second generation of them is the Monumental Bar, whose silence is deafening at this point. We need some attorneys like Jillian. We need some great thinkers like Roland to come and revamp a much-needed entity.
Yes.
I don't really want to call it Civilian Review Board or whatever, but it is a travesty because people's rights are being violated.
Yes.
And we got people of color, so-called men of color, sitting there and seeing these injustices take place.
And that's mind-boggling to me. Go ahead, Mr. Patterson.
outlined to you already that there was an order from the city solicitor that stopped the flow of cases. There was a lawsuit by the CRB to challenge that order. The order was rescinded, but then the cases were by the director's own mouth withheld, and no outcry was made. There was no press conference, no mayoral input, no sign outwardly that anything was wrong. And so it really doesn't matter in my mind whether people that you name, Jonathan, care or don't care. What matters is whether the job is being done, whether the complaints are being processed, whether the cries of citizens who've been victimized are being heard. And if not, the answer is very simple. Changes must be made.
And when you read these cases that are on, they are heartbreaking. And 26 out of the 28 cases can't even be adjudicated in the first place. Jillian, let's break it down to the lowest common denominator. I am Baltimore City. You are costing me, and you work for me, and you are costing me money by not doing your job in a legal manner, so someone else is suing me. My point is this: what does a city benefit by covering up corruption? Wouldn't they benefit by letting this process, the Baltimore City Review Board, things like this work? Why would the city not want it to work? I don't understand.
Well, I mean, you know, it's a cost-benefit analysis. It's the same kind of thing. When you see a corporation, I don't know if you're old enough to remember, you're probably not old enough to remember this, but there was a thing with the Ford Pinto. And they designed the Ford Pinto
I do remember
with
that.
a gas tank in the rear of the car.
Yeah.
So that if you were rear-ended, your car would explode and you would die.
Yeah.
Now, Ford knew about this problem. They realized it too late after they'd already produced a whole bunch of Ford Pintos. And rather than recall them and redesign it, they decided it would be cheaper for them. And when I say cheaper, I'm talking about like dollars, just like $1.50. It would be cheaper for them to pay out lawsuits for people who were killed than to retool the factory and redesign the car, just to move the gas tank. So it's really the same thing with Baltimore City. It is cheaper for them to pay out the lawsuits for abusive cops, for police brutality, than it is to really reveal what is going on, because that increases their liability. Look, even now, they're trying to avoid paying damages to victims of the Gun Trace Task Force.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And when there was a bill in front of the legislature to return the police department to the control of the city, because, you know, the city pays for the police department, but it's really a state agency historically, right? So it doesn't have total control over the police department. When there was a bill in the legislature last year to return the department to the city control, the city backed out. They don't want it because it's going to increase their liability. So, and I don't know if you saw last year when they finally, the council passed this new prohibition on gag orders in police misconduct lawsuit settlements, the mayor said he would refuse to enforce it. So, I mean, everything points to sweeping stuff under the rug because it's a whole lot cheaper than dealing with the real problem.
And that's very sad. Okay, I really am going into the next segment, but let me just ask one quick question more to Cheatham and Ms. Patterson. Mr. Cheatham, a year from now, where do you see us in this conversation right now? 1 year from now, where do you see the picture looking like?
Working hand in hand with the Inspector General.
So we got two now, right? We used to have one, now we have two. We had let's see. You think we're going to work hand in hand with the Inspector General next year because why?
Well, I think we need to have someone who sees the inner working of the city and sees the great necessity to make improvements to protect the people. We need someone inside to substantiate what we I really think we're going to need legal help. Intelligent, articulate folks like the two you have on there, Jillian and Roland. We're going to have to address this legally, but we're going to need someone inside, like the Inspector General, to help maneuver us through what I think are some legal injustices that are taking place from the clerk's office.
Yes. Mr. Patterson, quick statement. A year from now, where do you see... Go ahead, Mr. Patterson. You get the final word on this. Yes.
Senator Jill Carter is going to reintroduce her legislation to move the CRB out of Baltimore City and into a Maryland state agency.
Oh.
To give it a genuine independence. And I think that's where we're going to be next year. That's the answer to this question. The city has to have no oversight over the CRB.
Wow, that would be great. That would be great. Okay, Mr. Cheatham, Mr. Patterson, Ms. Alderbron, I am very humble and thankful for your chiming in. And this obviously needs more discussion. And I'm going to be at the next meeting. I'm looking forward to seeing what it's going to produce out of this. But thanks again. Y'all have a blessed day. Shalom, shalom.
Thank you, Johnson.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so that is the first portion of Yahweh for Christians at gmail.com. All-star cast there. I'm very thankful for them calling in. And I did not expect Mr. Cheatham. That was a bonus. That was a bonus at no extra cost. I don't think he's going to charge me for that. So what I wanted to talk about is we have just finished the Passover and Feast of Unleavened Bread. And now we're on our countdown to Shavuot. And fittingly enough, there are 7 called out ones that can lead us to that. I want to talk about the next 7. Kahal Kara Hashiba. Kahal Kara Hashiba. That is the 7 called out assemblies, not the 7 churches, and not the 7 Ecclesiastes. That's Greek. And I'm going to talk about that, and that's going to lead us to Shavuot, because we, as you see now, this novel COVID-19 mess going on, that we are in desperate times right now. This is truly the last generation, and I can show you that scripturally, but I'm going to have to wait till after Shavuot, talk about this timeline, what's going on with Daniel, Revelations, and you'll be surprised how close we are to this final day. We need to take things seriously, and I'm going to highlight that. Today, I want to talk about Kahal Kara Hashiba, the 7 assemblies. On deck first is Ephesus. One of the problems that our pastors and our ministers and our church leaders have is they don't know that the book you're reading, called the Bible, is a Hebrew history book. If you don't study it from the mindset of a Hebrew, if you don't interpret it and give an assessment from that perspective, you're going to be off. The testimony of Yahweh Shua is the spirit of prophecy. There is no prophecy, not accurate, without coming from that point of view. One of the things about Revelations, even saying the word revelation, belies what the book is talking about, what the letter is talking about. It's Golah. The accurate name for the book of Revelations is Golah. And Golah has connotations to a genetic people who are being warned or called out. The correct name for the book of Revelations is Golah. You're not even going to find that in your Strong's Concordance. But you can get it if you get yourself a hallet. Okay? And you got to be ready to spend some money. About $400 bucks for that book. But if you're a sincere studier of this language, then you would do that. Right off the bat, you see in Revelations, and I got a whole lot of stuff going on here, working from my home office. You don't get the understanding that the whole letter of Revelations is written to Yahweh's people. And it mentions others as it affects or interacts with Yahweh's people. Yahweh's people are Hebrew. And you do not get this in reading from the KJV in the English language. Revelations 1:1 tells you exactly what I just said. He says, the revelation of Yahweh Shua HaMashiach of Yahweh gave to him to show his servants. His servants. Who are his servants? Who are Yahweh's servants? Well, 2 Chronicles 7:14 tells you, if my people who are called by my name. So that means Yahweh has a people and his name is in them. Remember I taught you that word theophoric. Theophoric means that his name is in his people. His name is in his people. So people like to misquote 2 Chronicles 7:14 all the time and apply it to their nation and all these things. You hear it all the time. It's one of the most misquoted scriptures in the Bible. 2 Chronicles 7:14. It's only talking about Yahweh with his Hebrew people. And they are his servants. So the book of Revelations is a book written for us, just like the book of Hebrews is specifically written for Hebrews. And there's some key things to look at before we even go into the first so-called church of Ephesus. We see that in verse 4, he says that Yahweh is, was, and is to come. That's the same thing he said in Exodus 3:14. So in this letter, Yochanan, who you call John, is clearly letting you know that he's writing this letter to Yahweh's people under the influence of Hamashiach, who is under Yahweh, who was and is to come. And he said that Yahweh Shua has the 7 spirits. And those 7 spirits, if you go to Isaiah 11:2, the 7 spirits of Yahweh, wisdom, understanding, counsel, might, knowledge, and fear. Those are the 7 spirits. Yahweh Shua is in the midst of the lampstand, seven lamps representing each assembly, each kahal. Kahal, Kara, Hashiba are the 7 assemblies. They are 7 called out ones. That's what he's talking to. When you talk about oil and light, that's the Ruach HaKodesh. Ruach HaKodesh is the inspirator. Verse 5 of Revelation 1 talks about the faithful witness. Who is the faithful witness? Go to Proverbs 14:5. We find that the faithful, well, we know Yahweh Shua is the faithful witness. Yahweh Shua is called the faithful witness. Proverbs 14:5 says a faithful witness does not lie. So we, starting off with Revelations, we find out that in the very beginning, Yochanan, who was banished to the island of Patmos, he's writing a letter specifically to Hebrew people, and he's writing it coming from the words of Yahweh Shua, who is the object of it, and this must happen. He said these things must come. They must come shortly. This is why I'm feeling very pressed now to talk about this, especially with this hype going on now. The whole world is shut down. These things must happen, and it's coming from the mouth of the faithful witness, and the faithful witness cannot lie. He doesn't lie. He's under the spirit of these 7 spirits. Verse 7 talks about a tribe. You might see it in your Bible saying tribe, but the best word is Moheladeth. And Moheladeth is a genetic word. So this is going to genetic peoples. When you use Moheladeth, you're talking about nativity, a lineage, a family. Yahweh is going to divide the whole world by Moheladeth, okay? By their genealogy. Now, the world may have over 200 listed nations or whatever, but Yahweh only has 70 to 72 nations. And he's going to do the dividing, he's going to do the separating of the whole house of Israel amongst these nations. So, what we don't see in review in the Bible is that the book of Revelations is a Hebrew book, a Hebrew letter written by a Hebrew man being dictated to him from Hamashiach, who came through a Hebrew people, and it's to the 7 assemblies And from there, we can start talking about the seals and the trumpets and the bowl judgments. Once you know who these 7 so-called churches are, then you'll have a better perspective of what's going to come after that. But you must first know the beginning. And the beginning is Yahweh's people. Revelation 1:8 says, I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, who is and who was and who is to come, the Almighty. And then Isaiah 9:6 says, unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given. The object of desire in the book of Revelations is Yahweh Shua and his love for us. And there's 7 spirits of us that he is addressing in these last days. And in these last days, Ezekiel tells us in Ezekiel 9:5-6 that judgment begins with his people. Judgment begins with his people. We read in Matthew where Yahweh Shua cried over us because we would not receive him. We would not accept him. We denied him. That was his last call to us as a corporate people. As such, we read Ezekiel 9:5-6, in these last days, his call to us is on an individual level. Mikdosh. Judgment will begin at Mikdosh, at each individual person's relationship with Yahweh. This is post burning down of the temple. Before the temple, before 70 AD, you had still a community access or corporate access to the Most High. After 70 AD, you no longer had that. Revelations 1:20 talks about the 7 stars. That is for each one of us, the assembly. The olive oil is Ruach HaKodesh. Okay. So each, and here's another thing we're not understanding. Each letter that Yochanan wrote was delivered, hand-delivered, and spoken from a malach, what you call an angel. 7 angels literally left the island of Patmos to each one of these assemblies and read this letter to them. They literally had an angel, what you call an angel, read these letters to them. The first on deck is EPHESUS. Now, Yahweh Shua had a lot of good things to say about the Ephesonians. He liked their works. He liked their labor. He liked their patience. He liked they had no tolerance for evil. And they did a good job in vetting out false apostles and liars. They did a good job at that. And he liked that they persevered for his name's sake. They did not get tired of fighting for the name of Yahweh. Now, that sounds great. All those things sounds wonderful and great, and they are. Then why is Yahweh Shua calling them to the carpet? Why is he taking them to the woodshed? He's taking them to the woodshed for one thing. The problem that Yahweh Shua has with Ephesus and the people who worship in what you want to call churches or temples, whatever they want to call them, is that they do not have love. They have lost their first love. Now, that's serious. That must be very serious. Anytime Yahweh Shua says all these good things about the assembly in Ephesus, all these good things, they love the name of Yahweh. They are tirelessly fighting for his name. They vet out false prophets and liars. They hate liars and do all that. They're very strong and boisterous and all this for the law, and they labor hard and work, but they do not have love. How serious is that? Very serious. If you are worshiping amongst people who do not have love, you need to leave. It doesn't matter whether they call on the name of Yahweh. The whole book of Revelations is for those who call on the name of Yahweh. And why do I say that? Let's go to what they call the love chapter, 1 Corinthians 13. Though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I have become sounding brass or a clanging cymbal. That means you're just a big loud mouth. You're just running your mouth. If you have no love, it don't matter if you're saying Yahweh's name out of your mouth. If you don't have love, you need to shut up. And though I have the gift of prophecy and understanding and all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith so that I could remove mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, but have not love, it profits me nothing. Love suffers long and is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not parade itself, is not puffed up, does not behave rudely, does not seek its own, is not provoked, thinks no evil, does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in truth, bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails. But whether there are prophecies, they will fail. Where there are tongues, they will cease. Whether there is knowledge, it will vanish away. For we know in part and we prophesy in part, but when that which is perfect has come, then that which is in part will be done away. And that perfect thing is the love of Yahweh Shua HaMashiach. So, with all the accolades and wonders and praises of the believers in Ephesus, if you worship in a place that works for Yahweh, that labors hard, that has patience, and no tolerance for evil, that vets out and kicks out people they think is false apostles, they put out who they think are liars, they do all that. They filter out what comes in that door, and then they persevere for the sake of Yahweh's name. They defend Yahweh's name. And they don't get weary in doing it. If they don't have love, you need to stop going there. And that's not Yachanan Dawid saying that. That is Yahweh Shua HaMashiach. He said, I had that against you. You've lost your first love. And then in verse 5, he says, remember where you came from. And that's our problem. Once we get the knowledge of Yahweh and we get baptized and we have some success, we do some things, and we learn a little bit, we think we know the book, we forget where we came from. And we find ourselves not having patience and tolerance for newcomers for new people in the name. As if we always had done right. As if we always was in Yahweh's good stead. As if we never were an enemy against Yahweh ourselves. Verse 5, Romans 2:5 says, remember where you came from. Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? You have new ones coming in, show them Ohab. Not Ahava, that's German. Show them Ohab. Show them love. There's two things those saved in the kingdom will not be. They won't be proud and they won't be loveless. Everyone saved in the kingdom will be humble and with love. Love and humble. They go hand in hand. It's hard for a proud person to have love. When you're proud, you only smell your own stuff and you don't think it stinks. If you that way, you sound like you are believers or worshipers of the assemblies of the Ephesians. And Yahweh Shua says they need to repent and do the first works. Repent. Repent means to stop, turn around from what you're doing. Turn around from being loveless. Repent and go back to the first works. You first came into Yahweh Shua. You first got baptized. You first called on his name because you said you loved him. That is why you did it. Yahweh Shua's eyes are 10,000 times brighter than the sun. He sees through all your BS. He sees through everything. Nothing is hidden from him. If you harbor hatred in your heart against your brother, against your sister, he does not want you. I don't care how much you sing his name, how much you preach his name, how much you work in his name. You must have love to enter into his kingdom. Yahweh Shua died on the stake for love. Wake up, Israel. My whole message since I've been doing this is about the love of Yahweh Shua. I've been trying my best to give you nuances in the book of his love that you're not hearing from no other platform. No other platform explaining to you about the aspects of his love from the ruddy heifer and from the tree and from Yahweh Shua as the X-Man. No one else. His love for you goes beyond a created mind's comprehension and understanding. As such, he's not going to have anyone in his kingdom living forever without love. Keep doing your works. Your works will not save you. Works get you crowns. And when you get your crowns, when it's your turn to go up to the line, just like a graduation, you're going to lay those crowns back at the feet of Yahweh Shua, because it's him who caused you to be able to do those great works, to be fruitful. You're fruitful in him. The works are needed. You must obey Yahweh. You must keep the commandments. Otherwise, you're a lawbreaker. You must do unto others you have them do unto yourself. Don't treat nobody the way you don't want to be treated. Treat everyone the way you want to be treated. That's the golden rule. You do that, and you do works in doing that, and you get crowns for that, but you don't get salvation for that. Here, oh yes, Yisrael. So for the advice that Yochanan gave to the Ephesonians by the inspiration of Yahweh Shua was to continue in your works. He loved that they hated the works of the Nicolaitans. The church or the believers of Ephesus, the assemblies of Ephesus, do a good job in fighting against authority who fights against Yahweh. They do a good job in understanding his word. They do a good job in picking out liars and whoever they think is lying. They work hard. But they don't have the ohab, the love. What is the first works? Mark 16:15 says, preach the Basor message to all the peoples. If you have a preacher who cannot preach the message of Yahweh Shua every week, you need to go to someone else. Noah preached one message for 120 years. The ark represented Yahweh Shua. Tebah, it represented Yahweh Shua. We are here on this side of the flood, waiting for the fire to come. Mark 16:15 says that we're to preach the Basor message to all peoples. That is your calling. It ain't about nothing else. Nobody gives a flip about you. I'm determined to know nothing between me and you but this. Take away your personal stuff. Preach the word of Yahweh Shua. That's the Basor message, which they call the gospel. That is your calling, Ephesus. That is your calling. Nothing else. That is the beginning and end of your meal. That's on your whole plate, is the Basor message of Yahweh Shua. 1 Timothy 3:16. Without controversy, this is the word. This is the calling. There's no doubt as to what your calling is and what Yahweh Shua is and what your purpose is, and it is to preach the Basor message. Whatever talent he gave you to give, that's what you do. Let's read that 1 Timothy 3, since I mentioned it. 1 Timothy 3:16. And it reads, and without controversy, great is the mystery of righteousness. This is a mystery of righteousness. Being truly righteous is a mystery. Here it is. That Yahweh was manifested in the flesh, justified in the Ruach, seen by Malachim, preached among the Goyim, believed in the Eretz, received up in honor. That's what you do every week in the name of Yahweh Shua, because you love him, you love yourself, and you love your brother. That's what you do. If you're not doing that, you're sounding brass, you're allowed. Listen, Paul says, even if you give your body up to burn for him, it's nothing if you did it for your own edification. Everything you do, whether you give somebody a glass of water or preach a sermon, must be done in the love of Yahweh Shua. And he says, if you're not doing that, you are sounding brass. You're sounding brass. And brass rhymes with something else that you are. It rhymes with something else that you are. Be loud in Yahweh Shua. In Yahweh Shua only. You not want to hear, after doing all these great works, the goats came up to Yahweh Shua from his left. And they said, oh, Yahweh, 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 did not we do all these great things in your name? They all handed out their resume. They had a whole long list of great things they done for him. They fed the poor. They gave to the needy. They healed the sick. They let their bodies be burned for him. They built this. They gave that. They did this and did that and did that and did this. And what did they hear from Yahweh Shua's mouth? Depart from me. I never knew you. Talking about a sinking heart. When you wake up, you praise Yah because you love him. And you go to sleep, you praise Yah because you love him and you love yourself and you love his people, and everything in between had better be the same. Otherwise, you've just wasted a whole nother day puffing up yourself or puffing up someone else or puffing up whoever you want to puff up. But if you're not in the name of Yahweh Shua, if you're not doing his works by the love of Yahweh Shua, you are a sounding ass or brass, whatever you want to call it. Whatever you want to call it, that's what you are. And that ain't my mouth, that's from the book. Next week on deck is Kala Kara Hashiba of Smyrna. Smyrna is next on deck. And we're going to talk about them. This was the persecuted believers. And we're going to go each week to Smyrna, to Pergamos, to Thyatira, to Sardis, to Philadelphia. That's the one everybody aspires to be. Everyone wants to claim they're Philadelphia. Shut up. Just shut up. Everybody else wants to claim they're the best. You're the 144,000. You're Philadelphia. And don't want to look in the mirror and tell the truth to themselves. Look in the mirror and tell the truth to yourself. Do you love Yahweh? Do you love his son? Do you love your neighbor? Then show works of it, because his eyes are 10,000 times brighter than the sun. You ain't Philadelphia. And then the last one will be Laodicea. So until then, next week, be safe out there. Do not worry about no COVID, nothing like that. Love Yahweh with all your heart, mind, and soul, your neighbor as yourself, and you're covered under the wings of Yahweh. Yahweh Rapha, Yahweh Healer. Yahweh with you here. Shalom, shalom.